watch and not watch?
Do I get feed?
Or
Like,
can you look at that on the
I
app?
guess, yeah. I guess I could go back and be like, "Ooh, how many views does this have?" I just know that I recently went back and what was that?
But I feel like as an admin, you can see like when they watch and when they drop off.
Oh, if there is that capability, I'm not sure.
For live things, you can, but for recorded things, I don't know how to.
I just went back and watched an old lecture video I gave from, I guess, 3 months ago or 15 weeks ago, and I think I was the third view of it. So, and I think I had watched it at least one time before that. So I guess
Yeah.
I didn't know.
think the counter is a little funky because you have to watch it to the end. So
No.
I've definitely watched a lot of the videos.
You don't have to
Doesn't
watch it to
there's-
the end.
There's something that triggers it. To
But
say, like,
there
you
is like
watched
a
it.
point in time where it'll
Yeah.
say that you've watched it.
Can we just recap what we did?
Yeah. So my apologies for not having the record on earlier. What we've done is we were presented with a fairly empty app component that had a nav that was being called in it. We haven't done anything with the nav because the nav is just there for good looks. We have been instructed to take a data set full of pigs and render them to the page. There's some additional stuff that we'll get into, but we're just taking this one at a time. To contain our pigs, we created a PigPen container, which is going to be importing our hogs data set here. We're setting our hogs to our state, and inside of our PigPen, all we're doing is calling a render hog function, which will call an individual pig component for every pig in our data set. Cool? Did I effectively recap that? Cool. So what I'm going to do here is, now that I'm using the different pig properties, is I kind of want to go in and just make sure that I'm destructuring everything. So we have a name, a specialty, a greased property, weight, and then highest metal achieved. I don't know how I'd be able to like destructure that, but special. We'll at least grab what we can. Greased and weight. Does that sound about right? Props.pig. So now I should be able to simply just call this name.
So when you do the destructuring, you can just choose arbitrarily the number of their,
Yeah.
as long as they line up in the order. Is that correct? Or does it has to just match?
The order doesn't matter, it's the
It
name.
has to match.
The
If
name
it's
of the
an
name.
object, if it's an array,
If it's an
the
array,
order
Right,
matters
then it does
for
matter.
structure.
Okay.
yes, very true. But an array is just objects anyways.
But their keys are numbered.
Yes. Okay, so we've got this. Let's make this look a little bit better. We've got all this. So let's take that down. I'm going to put our name inside of a H4, maybe, because I think we're using an H3 somewhere before H4. And then I'm just going to use p tags. Or should we use a list? Let's do a list. Why not? Li. We want this to show the specialty. The greased factor. Which, I guess grease is just a Boolean. Like, so this will show something weird when we first pop it. But
And you left off that last property because why?
because you have a multi-word key here with spaces in it, I'm not sure there's no way for me to be like highest award, like it just doesn't work that way. So I guess I could do, I'm not even sure how you would need to do that.
It wouldn't take that string.
No. Because really what I'm just trying to do is save this as a variable of some kind that I can access. This is no different than me doing like props.pig.specialty. I just don't want to write that so often because, as you've probably seen, sometimes you miss a period or something like that. The prosciutto concern. Okie dokie. Okay, so now we're actually getting some things. Wanted to look at exactly what is contained in here. So why not? We've got our ULs. I have two list item things that aren't actually showing anything. That might be,
The greased. Right.
well, I think I spelled specialty wrong. I did. So that's part of it. So now this should render, and now specialty should show up. Yeah. Piggy Smalls and his massivity. Which is kind of a fun word to say. But, okay. But that, and our weight is showing. To prove that, just put our pounds there, so that at least makes some sense. But our weight isn't, our greased isn't showing. And again, our grease is just a Boolean value of sorts. So what we can do here is we can use a ternary to say that if it is grease,
Oh, sure.
piggy greased, no grease. Or something to that effect. But you can see here we do have some different, it's actually working, I assume. I assume Lego Maego is a greased pig, and if we want to confirm that, he is a greased pig.
Very nice. I think so.
So, what about this last thing, though? How can we access this property here?
Well, I Googled it and you can
Destructure.
restructure it.
Also.
I
Yeah.
put it into Slack, so basically you make it an object. Where the thing that it was is the key, and then the value is what you want to call it now. I'm not sure how it would work with multiple other things.
Well, this
In
is
there?
key. Okay.
Because it should be the same problem they're facing that we're facing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know if I like that. Yeah. So constant data. Okay. Dash baz equals data.
I guess I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time. So you're
So-
basically representing what was here with this arbitrarily named
Yeah,
variable
renaming
here.
Okay.
The fact that they
Okay.
choose to rename it to food,
Yeah.
I mean, it demonstrates they could rename it to anything, but it's
Right.
not the most logical.
Given that I'm only going to use this once in the component, I'm just going to access it directly. But
With bracket notation.
yeah, that is something that you could do. Highest metal, and then this dot prop. Nope, no this.
That's
No.
why we're not
Props.
in the parent. Yeah.
Well, because we're not in a class component
Yes.
specifically. Props dot pig dot nope square.
Yeah.
Highest award. Hey, there we go. Wood?
Diamond.
Rainbow
That's all-
Dash is
that's all
just
I'm
not
thinking,
like.
yes.
Wait, can we go back to the data?
Can you destructure on any like nested data type? So like if it's like hella nested, could you still pull out those attributes? Okay,
Mhm.
cool.
Any other question? Was there something that you thought was off?
No, I just I misremembered what highest metal achieved pointed to.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Cool. Well, we've got that working.
Is this the destructured version?
This is the version where
Or just
we're
called props?
where for the highest metal achieved, we just passed it in bracket notation here. Everything else has been destructured.
Okay, gotcha. I see.
Can we add the picture to the pig as well?
I'm sure we can. Now, here's the fun question, though.
Well, it's not. They're not coupled.
Yeah, they're not coupled at all.
But
Their
their
names are the same.
the names I like if they use blurred out random faces. But
And you've got two cherubs here.
Is one's JPEG and one's PNG. It looks like everything else is JPEG.
Okay, yeah. So we can.
Delete one of those.
Sorry, cherub pick. So yes, the names are the same. However, I don't know that like cross-referencing them is going to be the easiest thing in the world, simply because it'd be one thing if all we had to do was downcase,
Sure.
like this name here, but like the prosciutto concern, we'd have to go in, downcase everything, and also insert underscores into it between there, which you can do. We can do that. I just question whether that is the most valuable use of the time right
It's
now.
not, so let's
Not
keep talking
even
about
on.
it. Yeah.
Other option would be to import all of our hog images and then iterate through them and randomly assign them to each of these, which we could do that as well.
I'm not too concerned.
Yeah.
No.
I'd rather practice like a post or something else too.
Cool. So what is our actual README asking for now? Each hog name and a picture in a tile. Yeah, they make this really, really bad.
Oh, so we're only supposed to show the details on click.
Okay,
That's fine.
cool. So,
Should we add photos? Just iterating through them doesn't matter who goes to who.
we could do that, although we'd have to import every single photo in there.
Oh boy.
Here's what I'm going to do.
Can you import the file?
Yeah.
There's a way to do it. I can't recall. Image from hog images, Augustus loop.jpg. Yeah, I should be able to. And then like down here, image source equals image. There we go.
Yay, it felt perfect.
Cool. And of course, I'm just going to take that here. Have it like that. Why are you yelling at me? Oh. Alt equals pig. It needs an alt tag. It's technically accurate. Yeah, it is so weird. It's so weird. All right. So yes, as Krista had mentioned though, one of the things that we need to do is figure out a way to show the hog's detail upon a user click, which by virtue of that would make us think that we don't want to show them if it hasn't been clicked yet. How would we handle that?
Sounds like similar to the Pokemon searcher where you have to, what is the searcher? Oh, you could click on it and then it would flip. The card would flip. When I was
We do
working
something
on
like that.
Where I was keeping something in state, like clicked, true, false.
Yep.
And then, okay.
So based on what we know so far, if we wanted state to live inside of this particular component, what do we need to do differently?
Make it a component?
Make it a class component.
And then to add in this and then cross. And line 15,
You
or line
are
5,
100% right.
and then line 16.
Okay. Still works. Cool. we've successfully refactored from a class component, well, from a functional component to a class component.
Why did you have to move the destructure into the render?
Yeah, it's a really fair question. So if it's in here, it's assuming that this is all just a property or a method on this particular class. So like when you put a method in there, you just name it whatever we would have like change pig would just be a method on there. Basically, it doesn't know what to do with this const. You're seeing it.
So even though I would assume, like my basic assumption is that, hey, that's in scope, I should be able to do that.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do it here where you want this to happen. Is going to be inside of your render function.
I'll just remember that.
Because then you're going to be using these inside of your return, so you want access to them within the render function and its scope there.
It would give you an error too, wouldn't it, if you had outside renders?
Yeah.
That's nice and missing.
If I have it like this here, this isn't going to actually, basically it doesn't know what to do with this const. So even if I just take the const out, it's like, why is there a weird random bracket just there? Doesn't know what to do with it, so it just needs to be right here.
Like even if it was a regular class, you shouldn't be doing object construction in there.
No. Cool. So we've said that we wanted some kind of state way to keep track of whether or not this is clicked. Right?
Is clicked.
Is
Should
clicked.
Make it false.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay.
Shouldn't all of our like display values right now also be on that false? So like everything right now should not be showing up except for the picture.
Right. We just want the name in the picture there, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So put in a
So-
larger container and then
So one thing that we can do.
Ternaries, right?
Yeah, we can use a big old ternary that will show this if it is there or not if it's not.
Pull it out into its own method.
Yes. What John has brought up a really good point the other day, where basically if you're writing any JSX inside of any of your logic, that's a good sign that your JSX should be extracted into its own component, just to clean things up and make things easier to look at. Does that make sense to people?
you build an entirely new component just on one function.
Just for like because all of this is what we're hiding all of this
Yeah.
basically. We don't have to.
Let's do it as an example.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I do.
Okay.
I think that way.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and do that.
I've just been making like my like highest parents that have all the methods like the fattest as far as like the most logic carrying,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't necessarily think that's related per se, but I also haven't been breaking up my components like we're about to do here. I feel like my
No, I'm
components
similar
are
to
pretty
you. I
slow.
haven't been thinking in advance.
Yeah, I have been thinking in React. Yeah.
So for this sake, I can be pretty confident that this will be fine to be left a functional component. So I'm
We're
going
just
to.
displaying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then we're going to display some stuff here. And what we're going to display is pretty much going to be all of this.
I get really nervous and I forget that it's the same code.
Yeah, all we're doing is we've just extracted this one level to
Yeah.
be living on its own, which is one of the things I really like about React, personally. Like, I think that's awesome. So,
It's funny to call it functional when it's just for display. Functional for methods, but whatever, that's just me. Keep going.
Is that presentational component? Is that what you would call this one or no? I guess is there a
It's a
logic?
functional component.
Oh, because there is some logic in here.
well, no, not really. I mean, this is just.
I thought functional components were presentational.
I think they can
Yeah, yes,
overlap.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes. I would call this a prop start. What do we call this pig?
I don't know the
That's right.
names, but I just have some components that do the thinking and some components that do the showing.
So really, we don't need this anymore. And then we need to call our import pig details from pig details. And right now, my attempt is just to make everything show up like it had shown before. So I'm just going to call this pig, and that's going to equal this dot props dot pig. So that'll just pig. So that'll just continue to go down as it has been, and just double checking props dot pig. This would just need to be props dot pig. Okay. There we go.
Nice.
Awesome. Exact same functionality. Honestly, as far as like our actual elements on the page are concerned, it's no different than it was before. It's all still the same thing. You now just have this UL. You know, when it's rendered to the page, this is the exact same format that we had everything in before. We just extracted this out into its own logic.
Do you find David, that you're referencing the element page often, like when you're doing labs? Like I've never looked at that ever. And I wonder if
I do just if I want to see exactly how my page is supposed to be structured. Like, basically, anytime I'm using like my console here, I go back and forth between this page, and this page most of all.
Okay.
Yeah. This gets a little trippy just because like the span all of a sudden shows up, and I think this is a virtue of possibly semantic UI throwing this off, or maybe just the older React version.
Okay.
Usually it's not going to show all of these things, and I really don't like that it is. But
So the extra divs showing up don't necessarily affect how we pass props.
no. What we're really paying attention to is the structure of how things are set up in our actual code here to these different components.
David, is there a way to move components next to console when you're looking at it in the DevTools?
I've done it before. I forget how to. But, components next to console.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a way to do that. I've been able to do it through other, like, combine certain tabs, but not those two. However, one thing you can do is always just pop this out if you want. And then I think this allows for a little bit more. Well, that's kind of cool.
Like drag components over to the live next to console.
Yeah, it
So that
doesn't
works for
really.
something.
Yeah, this at least moves it around. I don't know if there is a way to split screen. I know I've seen it before in certain things. I'm trying to think where. Where do I usually put my debugger?
We were trying to drag components that didn't drag.
Yeah.
Components wouldn't drag.
Or try.
Oh.
So see, yeah, when you split it out, drag components all over your console. So I feel like those are the two I use the most. Yeah, like that.
So now you could just do that.
Nice.
That kind of solves it, but I don't know if that solves exactly what you were looking for.
Is that going to stay stationary then?
I think for as long as I have this open and I'm evaluating this particular one, it will. But I can't say for certain how
Okay.
changes will affect it. Okay.
Okay.
So, basically we have this back to where it was before, but really we want to render this depending on whether or not it's clicked as false. So, let's see. This dot state dot is clicked. I'm just going to break this out into a couple of different things. Is that what I wanted to do? Do we want to show name and image regardless?
Sure.
Cool. I was thinking more like the card type
Yeah.
of system where it not flipped, but it would render
Yeah.
differently. But yeah, that's fine. We can interpret this. Again, this is freeform. We can interpret this however we want. So what you're saying is that we just want this to display differently whether or not it's clicked. So if is clicked, okay, sorry. is clicked. If that is true, this dot state dot is clicked. If it is true, render null. Otherwise, render pig details. Although this is yelling at me because I need to close that off. And that formatted awfully. So let's see. Still.
We need to flip it. We have it so that it's rendering if it's false. And we want it to either.
So is
not
clicked.
flip.
Well, if this dot state dot is, oh, you are 100% right.
And we do.
I think I did that when I was going up
Yeah,
here.
you did it before.
Cool. Now we've got that. Cool thing about the dev tools. So if I go here to my pig. Oh, this isn't letting me do it. There used to be a thing where I could, if it was a Boolean, I could just switch it on and off. Well, that's lame. Oh, it did stay.
Oh,
Stayed over here. Why won't you let me do that? But I want to.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, we got it. I don't know what all I did there, but we did. Cool, cool. So we've got that. This is now rendering properly depending on whether it's clicked or not. So let's go back to our code, and we obviously want something that's going to trigger.
Yeah.
You want to click?
We want to be able to click. Maybe handle click? Question mark?
I never know if it's on or handled. I tried to read about that.
I wouldn't
On click
spend
is,
too much time worrying about it.
Directly
the on click is the
logic.
direct event listener, right? At the,
Yes.
wherever you
Oh,
want it.
I
On
see what
click
you're
should be
saying, yes.
exactly where
Handle
it
is
needs
your,
to be.
like,
Handle is the
Sending it
function.
off to the.
On click.
And you could like name handle click whatever you want. Is what I'm understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, but on click needs to be on click where the event is happening. Yeah.
Just to make sure, I always like to just throw in a little console log. I really don't like that I've made this its own separate window. Hold on.
Yeah, I was gonna say reintegrate that.
There you are. Cool. So really though,
Nice.
cool. We are hitting the pig. Individual pig. We are hitting the pig.
Like that girl with the stick.
It took me half a second to remember what you were talking about there. It's like, girl with a stick, what is going on? Cool, I just wanted to make sure that they are registering as separate pigs. And yeah, we're getting all those registering properly. Cool. So, what does handle click want to do? Yep. So what do we want to set this to?
Do a exclamation.
Yes.
For previous state. Do you have to do previous state for this?
Nope.
Or, oh, because that's why I was
I mean, it could do three.
But could it? Oh, okay. So you could, right? Or,
Yeah.
Should we do like a ternary?
So this will toggle it if you look at the way it is, because all this is going to do is change is clicked to whatever the opposite of what it currently is. Yeah,
And there's no worry about asynchronous updating. or anything.
there shouldn't.
So,
We should be good. This is a little annoying to jump up and down,
That's okay.
but also I feel like that's a UX UI issue.
Yeah.
not our
Yeah,
problem.
well, not our problem.
That part of the team handled it.
Oh. Whatever that last sip of coffee I just had was like all grounds.
That's the worst.
I'm sorry for your loss.
I am too. That was awful. Cool. So we've got all this going and doing stuff on click, which is really, like I said, a lot of what we're looking for here is like do stuff on click and things like that. I think that's really, really good for this. Let me just see here.
For our code though, we have it in the same component, right? So when we clicked it, we then have a function in the same component that says handle this click.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's all in the same.
It's all in this pig component.
Yep.
And basically we are determining whether to show our pig details component as a result of whatever this happens to be. So let me look at the README, because while I think there's a lot of really cool things that you can do on this, like filtering stuff and whatnot, I question whether it's the best use of our time for like the code challenge tomorrow. Because I don't want to give away everything that's on the code challenge, but I also would rather focus on stuff that is usable on there. So right now, we're taking data from an external source, we're setting that to state, we're rendering each hog name, and we are doing something on a click, which is dope. That's a lot of what you'll be doing.
Yeah.
Sorting and filtering like this is not really something that I want to spend a lot of time on. If everything's okay with it, what I'd like to do is basically just come up with a whole new problem domain that we can tailor to something similar to what the code challenge would be. And what I'd like to do is pull data from an external source. I'm thinking Reddit, specifically the React.js subreddit. Pull data from there, render a list of however many we want to do, and then basically be able to click on the name of that list to indicate whether it has been read or not. If it is read, we'll remove it from the initial list that it shows up in and show it in a brand new list. Kind of similar to what we had done today with the buffet piece,
Yeah.
with this added thing that it removes it from what we've initially clicked on.
Let's do it.
That would actually be really lovely. I would love Reddit to hide the things that I've already looked at.
Right? Wouldn't that be nice? So let's start integrating something like that. Right. So really, we're just going to go like base level with it.
I like
But
that.
does everyone understand like kind of like the functionality that we're trying to get with something like this? Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a create React app, which will take a non-zero amount of time. So if anybody wants to get up and take a quick break or something like that, I think now would be an appropriate time to do so. Create
Non-zero amount of time.
a non-zero amount of time. Yeah. Create React app, React Reddit. And this will go through its thing. I'm leaving the recording on, so don't talk shit.
Oh.
We're gonna speedbox over it. They have like that's kind of cool. They have like a who's hiring like sticky post on the React thing. Yeah.
I just saw the creator of Reddit, or not Reddit, React is like 23.
What?
No, and maybe even younger because that's like when his posting happened.
Oh my god. Just like it was.
Smells like an airplane in here.
It's warm. They're recording, so no trash talk.
No, no trash talk.
No, I didn't mean that. I'm just
But
like,
it just like, you know when sometimes you smell something and it brings you like instantly to a memory or a place? This smells like an airplane.
Delta.
I've mostly flown a Delta lately, so
Delta's
maybe it
one of
smells
the
like all
decent ones left.
Maybe they use the same glue.
Oh no, now you're I'm worried.
Oh my god. Okay.
You like the lemon tea too, right?
Yeah.
I've lately taken to adding some of the fruit water into it because I like don't want to drink it instantly because it's too hot. So I'll use that to monitor the temperature and it adds a little bit more flavor to it.
Love it.
Ooh.
I've been adding it to the kombucha when it runs out. I got half a cup of kombucha the other day. I'm like, well, might as well just add fruit water.
Nice.
Fruit water's so good. Especially if you like put it in a water bottle and you like leave the space and you're like, oh, I have fruit water still.
So
It's so good.
I will warn you, don't let fruit water sit in it for too long,
No.
or don't take too much time between like not washing it out,
Yeah.
because it will turn your
Because
stuff just foul.
I'm definitely
Really,
I
really
forgot.
bad.
I
Yeah.
forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've left it in there for like a week
Oh.
and came back and smelled it, and I threw the bottle away. Like it was.
Definitely
Oh,
worth getting
yeah.
bottles that you can wash easily.
Well, I just drink it quickly. So I drink it within a day's, 2 days time. But yeah, if you go any further than that, it's gross.
Okay, so this is eventually going to start up. Have y'all done like a Create React app before? Or has anybody played around with that at all yet?
I didn't try it.
It's a super cool tool. Like,
Oh, I've seen you just used it with yarn.
Yeah.
Do you normally use it with yarn?
so Create React app now just comes with Yarn. Like, it does everything via Yarn, which is just all Yarn is another package manager similar to NPM, but some people say it's faster. I kind of disagree, but I'm also not going to. It comes with a Yarn lock, and I'm not going to re-npm install everything for a package lock.json. So, Yarn is what a lot of people are moving to for one reason or the other. But this is what Create React app gives you, and it's just this giant thing here, like this. And what it looks like, it spits out all of this information here. Index is what you would expect it to be. This is our actual only component that we really have, and all it is a giant freaking header. Because that's all this is. This is
Took me a little
all,
while to figure that out, but
Yeah.
I made mine.
right?
I
This
can
is
see
all
it.
just a header right here. So first thing I usually will do is go to this and take this height down to like 10. Because then that's at least a little bit better, and the only reason it's still as big as it is because it's housing this like image that they force on you. Actually, the more I work with Create React App, the less I like it for the fact that I have to go in and delete all this stuff every time. But it's still pretty cool, I guess, because you don't have to worry about Webpack or any of that stuff.
What's the? I guess it's probably not easy. Like, what's the difference? Or what do you do instead of
What I do instead of I just use Create React App.
that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
Otherwise, it's like a lot of manual stuff. And
yeah, you basically
know the tools.
Create React App. What it does is it takes care of like bundling all of your React application into something that's servable to a browser. Because you couldn't just go in and like include this component in a script tag on your HTML. Basically, what Webpack does is takes all of your files and packages them in a way that is presentable to HTML. And configuring that, there are people who that is their job, is like doing Webpack configuration and things like that. So probably not the most rewarding of jobs, but all you need to do to get paid well is find something no one else wants to do. So,
Exactly.
So if we use Create React app, we don't have to worry about Webpack.
use Create React App. Yeah. Because there's Webpack, there's Babel, there's all sorts of other little things that you have to make sure that like your React application can be used by IE8 or whatever. Like it takes care of all of that for you.
Oh, okay.
So you see now this looks a little bit more like I would want a starter web app to look like.
Yeah.
We can take that out too. Another big thing about this is it does assume a functional component structure, at least for your very first thing here. I'm going to go ahead and we'll just start from this. I'm going to change this to React Reddit. And I'm going to say import Reddit container. And obviously we haven't built this out yet, so it's going to break, but I'm just going to set this up. Components Reddit container. Cool. I'm going to call that here. Still, it's going to break until we actually go over there and do it all, but it's there now. I can create my components folder, and I'm going to create Reddit container.js, And here's where we're going to do work. From React class Reddit container extends React dot component export default. You'll notice I always just go ahead and do this, even though it takes it kind of out of the flow, but I will forget to export it every time if I don't.
Yep.
And then render, return, div, Reddit. I just want to make sure that, again, I have things linked up. Wait, could not find that. What did I do
Are you
wrong?
importing?
Yeah, I am. Import Reddit container from. Now that I have it here, I'm gonna make sure that I've got that all spelled right. It should. Okay, there we go. Somewhere I had something spelled wrong or pathed wrong or something like that. But we've got that here now. Here is where we're going to work from. So the first thing that we want to do is, like I mentioned, we want to access, yes, we want to access that. So I'm going to go reddit.com r react.js. And again, the nice thing is that I can just tag a .json at the end of this. And there is my beautiful,
Fancy train.
there we go. That looks a little bit better. Cool. There's our React data. So, or our Reddit data.
Right.
Reddit React.
I was reading in like some of the documentation you could use like the method will mount or like something did mount for your fetches.
Component did mount, yes.
Component did mount. Okay.
That goes back to the lifecycle lecture that John was talking about. Use component did mount. Component will mount, which sounds like the perfect thing for everything, is being deprecated for unknown reasons. So use did mount. So,
So it's bad practice to put it in the constructor.
yeah, typically, I don't know if it's bad practice, but you'll notice like with this and with the way that like components are going, you use constructors less and less in a lot of the Reddit and a lot of the React things. So you're not wrong in doing it in the constructor, and we can actually do that here if you'd like. I would prefer to see the lifecycle methods get used because that's like component did mount. This is explicitly something that this is made for, basically, for like these types of requests. So I'm just going to call this for right now articles. We may need to change this at some point, but ultimately I want this to be an empty array.
Yep.
And then yes, I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to create a method called fetchReddit. That's not what I wanted. Cool. And that's just going to fetch this.
Where should you keep the URLs if you wanted to do variables for them? Where's the best place to store that? One of the labs had like a file just with the URLs.
That's probably what I would do.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, if I had, yeah, I would actually, because it's hard. It's like, where do you do that here?
Yeah.
You kind of want to keep everything inside of the component, so I guess you could call it from up here.
Or it has to be in the class. I think it has to be in the class.
And then,
Just do it not inside state.
yeah, I mean, you could do it
No.
here inside of your render.
Done.
No, I mean, you can, yeah, I could access, like, URL.
I was doing this lab earlier. They have that outside.
Oh.
You could totally do it there.
Yeah.
Just like up there somewhere.
So they have
Yeah.
the URLs outside of the class,
Okay.
and then you fetch it.
Yeah, there's no reason why this wouldn't work.
Okay.
Cool. I just learned something.
Good. It's not all for naught. Awesome.
I'm definitely learning a lot.
Yeah, I would hope
I've had an
so.
all for naught moment yet.
Then, oh, that was nice. It knew I was capitalized when I didn't want to, and it changed it for me. res.json.
We used to do letters of rest. No, kidding.
Why do we always do this in multiple lines?
I think it's more readable, personally, than just a one-line thing like this. I guess I could be convinced that you should just do it like this, because this is just kind of standard on that. And then here, oftentimes, I'm breaking it off into a lot of different things, so I want that extra.
Yeah,
Real
that's what I've
estate?
been doing. If you have something saved as a variable that you're touching, I felt like then you already have a very small line to start out with.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just kind of how I like to read it. I would rather read top down versus like across the page.
Okay.
There's no necessary reason that you have to.
Articles, right? Oh, sure.
So here's what I'm going to say. Is because this is coming from another source, let's look at what we're getting back
Sure.
and actually see, because I don't want to assign articles to this entire JSON object. I only want to assign to articles the stuff I care about that's
Sure.
inside of here. So it looks like we've got, and we'll go here just to make sure we're actually getting it from this. And of course, if we're going to create this, we do need to call it component did mount. And component did mount or any of the lifecycle methods that are given to you, you do go ahead and just write them as a standard component, not as an arrow function, not as an arrow function.
Cool.
Okay? And then we just say what we want to do in here. So in this case, we want to call fetch Reddit. This stuff, fetch Reddit. Cool. So now, when this reloads, I would hopefully get something, but I appear not to have. Let's see what's going on. Am I actually calling? I'm never actually calling my method, it would appear. Doo-doo-doo. Well, shucks. Why is this? Reddit container. Yeah, because this is showing up. The Reddit container's here.
Is it just that asynchronous because it's so much data?
No, it's not a ton of data. I did this weekend for a different lecture that I'm setting up for y'all. Res.json does that, and then JSON. Huh. But this isn't even calling. Why wouldn't you call? Oh, this doesn't even look like it has state.
Well, then it comes along the first one, and it should have done that.
Yeah, it looks like this extends react.component.
Do you
Okay.
let state a constant or anything like that?
No, I should be able to just call state like this. Well, I'm just going to eliminate this as a. I guess I could put props in there. Whatever. As a potential source of.
You know,
And then invoke the fetch inside of constructor.
Well, I'll try that next step. I'm trying to get why this isn't even showing my state at all.
It's cool you do that. Sometimes you only do it in
I did it in one of the labs. I invoked the fetch. I did it inside of constructor. Maybe that's a bad practice.
Why isn't this?
Brandon, you might do
yeah.
Obviously, this does or should.
and no error messages at all.
Just start the damn thing over again. So I'm not sure why that isn't doing what I want it to do. Thank you for your patience.
We got time.
It's nice watching an expert debug sometimes because it's just nice to see what you're running.
I've just done it
To
before.
us,
I'm
you are
I'm no
expert.
expert.
No need to downplay.
Yeah.
Your level of knowledge is
Compared to
more than our
mine,
level of knowledge
yes.
at this moment.
Yes.
So you cannot
You
refute
are
that
our
statement.
experts.
That's fair.
Yes.
That is
Yeah,
fair.
you are the local expert.
There we go.
Oh.
Okay,
What do you think it was?
So expert, tell us.
my suspicion is there was just something weird going on with, because I don't think it had anything to do with the constructor. I think there was something weird with my instance of starting, what do I call it, articles, that. I think there was something with my hot reloading, whatever you want to call it. Okay, there it goes. Now if I go here, I click on red, now I have, okay, that was weird. Cool, hey, turn things off and back on again. You know,
Right, yeah.
it does work
Restarted
sometimes.
your computer.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, ideally you can get away with not restarting the computer, but okay. So ultimately though, like I was saying, I wanted to console log this because I wanted to drill down and figure out what was important and what wasn't. So inside of this object, I have a data key that points to a bunch of stuff, which then has a children key, which points to an array of, I assume, way more Reddit information than I need, but ultimately all I care about is like the title or something like that.
Yeah.
But this is what I want. I want this children array. So that's what I'm going to set my article state to.
Do you like looking at it better in the console versus just at the API?
If I look at it through the console, I know that this is what my code is returning to me, and not just me going to here.
Gotcha.
If I had initially again, I looked at this data yesterday, just playing around with some other stuff. So I knew kind of where I needed to go nest it down to. So if I'm just trying to figure out, okay, what's my path to what I need, this is nice, but also this is doing two things. It's giving me the opportunity to see that my fetch is working, and I'm pulling this externally, and then I can go down and play with it. So really, I want, this is all represented by JSON. So JSON.data.children. And that's what I'm going to set my state to. So here, I've got that console log, this dot set state, articles is going to be JSON.data.children. I will go ahead and, yeah, something is up with,
Yeah. You took up a long time to log in.
okay, I guess it is maybe doing something. Instead of mounted, I'm just going to this dot state dot articles, because apparently a lot of times when I'm messing with this Solstice thing, it does make things a little funky. Oh, now it's showing it, and there we go. So this is directly in my state.
Is there a page server for it? No,
No, I did close that down. Thank you, though. That's not a bad idea.
it's good.
So now for each of our data objects, we've got, for each of our articles, we've at least removed some level of abstraction. We've got an array here that is going to show, that has a data property on it that is an object that will contain everything that we need. Still not my favorite thing, because this is still just like, contains information that I don't necessarily want, but it's something. Now, if I wanted this data to contain only what I wanted, what I could do is map over this current data set and just pluck out the bits that I wanted from it. I'm not going to do that right now because that seems like more work than it's worth, but you could do that. Anyways, let's continue on. So we have all these articles now. So for our first thing that we have, again, this is our container. So I want 2 new components, kind of like what we were talking about before. I want to be able to see my unread Reddit posts and my read Reddit posts. Or I want to be able to read Reddit posts.
You wanna let
And we're done.
it end it there?
Thank you. Okay. So,
Then we have to build out 2 new components.
yeah. And to more properly reflect what it is that I'm trying to do, I'm going to go ahead and change this from articles to unread articles.
Sure.
Because ultimately, I know I need to keep track of 2 things. I need to keep track of my unread articles and my read articles.
Like sushi.
Kind of like sushi.
Yeah.
Only thing is, this one will actually matter what goes into my eaten sushi array, where before it was just a plate, so it literally could have been the letter
Or the
S or anything. It didn't have to be anything sushi related whatsoever. Cool. So let's go ahead and let's create a new component that's going to be, we have our Reddit container. Let's create one called our unread container.
So, just thinking about this feels very similar to the Faye this morning,
Mhm.
where the unreads and the reds in the end are probably going to be displayed in a very similar fashion. Would it make sense from the start to,
To build it out for that.
yeah,
Yes. I would say if I was building this from scratch as we are, yes, some planning would be very nice to do so. If I'm trying to recreate what it looks like for tomorrow's thing, we probably want 2 different components. No, I really like the thinking ahead part of that, because that's what I would try to do. Because these are ultimately both my unread container and my read container are going to do the same thing. They're just going to package it slightly differently. So I would just try to write one component for this. That being said, when you're diving into existing code, that's not always the case. So unreadcontainer.js. I did not conventionally handle that naming.
All cap or caps to start.
Pascal case, they call it.
There we go.
Okay,
and Pascal, please?
I'm not sure. But that's what they
Think
call
spelling
it.
is the language?
I don't know.
Blog post.
Blog post?
That's gonna be the response.
Sounds
Every
like
question.
that sounds like a
Blog
great
post.
blog post. Yeah. Okay.
2 paragraphs long.
Yes. One word. Here for tomorrow's code challenge, are we creating new components?
Nope.
So all the components are built out.
I mean, you technically could write new components.
Sure.
You don't need to. Okay. Render, return. Cool. So let's go ahead. I know I'm going to need to go. I know I'm going to need to from here, since this is unread articles. Let's get our unread container from unread container, and I'm just going to call that right here. And actually, this is going to have to be slightly different because this is going to want to say Reddit containers like this, and I need this all contained in its own thing. So each one, Reddit container, why not? And then just call unread with that, and then this .state.unread articles. Especially if I was creating this with like just one container component that I was going to use for my unread and my read, I would make sure to name this something very similar between the two, is why I'm choosing to name this articles instead of unread articles. But for this sake, it doesn't really matter. I'm still going to keep the same naming convention there. So we have articles via props here. But what we really want to do is we want to display, we want to map through those props and display something for each. So let's create that. Render articles. And I'm going to return this props articles map. Control I.
What happens if you don't have the add-in?
Then you don't have reference to the index from within your map. So I just represents 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever
Right,
position in the array it is, and if you don't have that in here, in the signature of it here, you have no access to it from within here.
Okay.
So return.
The article has an ID, should we use that?
Yeah, I would always say use the ID if it is possible, because that is going to be a better guarantee of being unique versus 0, 1, 2, 3. Sure, things like that, and they don't shift. Well, yeah. But I'm not really entirely remembering what this has. So this will have, for each article, which again is going to be representative of this, I need to go down into data, and then, like,
Control F ID. I mean, instead of clicking it, you just kind of scroll until you find one.
yeah, sure, sure.
I don't know if it does.
Here we go,
Oh, done.
ID, awesome.
Yes.
So yes, we don't need that. We don't need that. We just need article.
Someone planned ahead of time.
I guess that's why I asked, because like I've been doing a few maps without it, and then I get this yellow warning that's like, you really need a key, you know
Yep,
me?
you
And I'm
need
like,
a key.
I don't know. I'm like, I don't know.
But for right now, I just kind of want to see if this is working. So I'm just going to do a fragment because I should be able to now. I like fragments. And then I'm just going to call this .render articles. So this will yell at me because I don't have a key. But in essence, I should create a brand new H1 for every single article. Boom!
Nice. Heck yeah.
We've got all those things. H1 might be a little aggressive.
Nah.
There we go.
Oh,
This
okay.
looks, in our Reddit container, this looks much more appropriate, if you ask me. Yeah, cool. Awesome. So, really, again, I just want to, I don't want to spend a lot of time like styling this and making sure it looks
More on
as
the
it
same page.
should.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is move on to what we can do to make sure that when we click one of these, that they are removed from this list and populated in a different list. So container, here's what I'm going to do. Is in my unread container, I'm going to just put in something here. Unread. Yeah. Okay. Something to delineate these things from one another. And then I really should just be using one component for this, but whatever. Red container. And again, I just want to make sure that we're aware that, like, typically you could usually, like, if we were using this data from each article in a different way, it would be good to write this as its own component, like a card component or something. But for right now, I'm just rendering just a p tag with each of those. Cool? Cool, cool, cool. All right. So red container, I'm just going to, anywhere that's mentioned, red container. Change this to red articles. And here, import it. Import red container. Yeah. Here's the thing. Just call it articles,
You're confident.
and this dot
That's my
state
spelling.
dot
Oh yeah, that's it.
red articles. There we go. Cool. So we should be able to see a list of unread. We have a list of read with nothing in there. The nice thing is we've constructed this in a way that nothing's breaking because I don't have any red containers or anything like that.
Sure.
Like a lot of times you'll run into, can't map over undefined or something like that. And a lot of times people will forget to declare an initial state of something that still, for any methods that are called underneath it, would need to have it in that state. Like if I wanted to start this with null, for example, well, the first time this renders, it's going to break because it's going to be like, oh, you can't map over null. So initial values are important, is I guess what I'm trying to get at there. Cool.
Never not added them, I always have them. I don't know about
Yeah,
everyone else, but I
it's-
always have them. Just initial state, like
Mm.
you could update it and create it, right, at the same time,
Right.
but
And I guess the thing is also to make sure that your initial state is some variation of whatever the same data type it's going to be. If it's a string, set your initial state to an empty string. If it's
that's smart,
and,
yeah.
yeah, I think that's, not always the most important thing, but important more often than not. Cool. So, we're done, right?
No,
No. Okay. Exactly. So we want something that is going to essentially, we want two things to happen every time we click one of these. We want to add them to red articles, which I'd argue is the easy part.
yep,
We also want to remove them from this one here.
let's do the easy part then. Just add it to the.
Add it to red article? Cool. So,
I don't think it was that much difference. There's nothing unique ID. We already did filter earlier
That'll
today.
be a ternary, right?
good point.
Or would it?
No.
You can say like his class.
We have their ID. We can just search through the IDs. And then when you find the matching ID, to remove it. Or more so, filter through everything that isn't that ID. In this case, you don't have to worry about this. You can just like one at a time now. I'm not gonna say you just like multiple things. I'm just saying.
IDs are important. IDs are hella important. Have IDs.
I've learned anything.
Have an ID.
Oh, my computer is working overtime. You hear that?
You need a charger.
No, I'm good for now. I mean, what? We're only here for 30 more minutes and we got 33%. It's going to come down to the wire. Cool. So, we want to add something to this. Well, really, we want an on-click on this P
Yep.
paragraph. That's going to then call really whatever we decide we want to call this read article. But let's just call it this.props.handle click. Because that's what I'm going to pass it down as,
Sure.
is handle click.
Can you write that in a different way, or you have to write it as an anonymous function because of
If
this?
I want to pass anything through, like, say handle click was not dependent. Well, okay, so like how this is currently constructed. So right now, let's just take this out. Right now, read article does not depend on anything that's being passed through to it.
Sure.
So because of that, I can call it just by a reference to the actual function, and it should still console log as I expect.
Well, the event would go through automatically anyways.
The event would.
So if you wanted something off the event, you could still leave it as is.
Why isn't this? Oh, because I'm not passing it down. That's why. This dot read article. There it is. Reading. Okay. So because this, I'm not trying to pass anything through to this, I can still just click on it and have access to it. I do, or I should have this persist. And this should give me something. Yeah, I can still get the access with my event.target, which busts open to a lot of other little things, and I can go down and if I put the ID in that way, I can put that there. Tinder inspired React Native. Interesting. And that's actually a really good way to do it, is if we wanted to here set an ID to do that here. Article dot data dot
Children.
We've already got the children because we killed all the children, or we bypassed the children by going into state. We just want this ID here. So dot ID. Yes. There's a lot of children murdering that happens.
I'm honestly surprised there wasn't a lab that was about it, considering the Blood Oath lab.
Blood Oath Lab is great. Like,
I'm not saying anything against the Blood Oath lab. I'm saying we should have more murder.
Kill all the children lab.
Can you
I'm not against it. And then here,
can you explain again why you need persist events?
so if I don't persist the event here, it is not guaranteed that by the time the event reaches any line, that it won't have dissipated and just like vanished
Oh, okay.
from my being able to access it.
Okay. Because yeah, I was like doing it this way, and I didn't do persist, and it worked, but
Yeah, and it still works. It's quick enough where it does work, but I wonder if I just were to like put a bunch of space in between me and it happening, if it would still. Okay, so it still is getting it. There are times where you lose access to it.
okay, just best to
Just best to go ahead. Kind of like when you're doing a form input and you do event up, event default. You kind of just get
You do it every
used.
time.
I do it every time. If I am using the event or data from that event, which in this case, yeah, I've got event.target. I think I can just .id off of it. Yep.
Yeah, that would be my check. Yeah, that's what I would do.
So we've got this ID here, which is awesome. So if I read the article, what I want to do,
Have it populate in red.
yeah, I do also want the whole article though, because like all I'm doing is grabbing the ID with this event.target.
Okay.
And I want the actual article. I could go through and I could find where it matches this and then have that article saved, but I'd rather just send my entire article with it. So to do that, that's where I'm going to need to pass something through to this handle click function, which really, how do I want to do? Is it event article? And then
So just kind of repeating what you just said, if we didn't use it as like invoked with parameters, we'd have to map over and compare. This, we're literally sending the object that we want through that method.
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll have a reference to that actual object as it exists within our state. So here, if I click on this, oh, shit, I'm not getting it back like I wanted it to. Doesn't know what that is. In this case, while the event has a lot of good information, I can also just send the article like this.
We've got ran into that issue, and I feel like I wrapped that call to it in a.
There, you're so slow. There we go. Wait, now I'm getting the event. What?
I think you only pass in the event initially, or there's like something where you don't have both of them. Each
Oh,
time,
yes,
right?
you are
Isn't it just
100%. I don't want it here.
yeah.
Yep.
Like if you want
There
the
we go.
event, you wrap the call like this stuff, but you wrap the call inside with like an arrow, and you pass it that one.
Mhm.
But if you
Yeah.
don't, you have a non-function. that's
So
added.
I could get both then if I wanted to.
Put event up there and then do
Yeah,
event on that article.
Yep. It's so particular.
Yep, so like,
Yeah, just gotta try on to learn now.
I've never done that before. Like I've never had to deal with that yet.
Here we go. Now I'm getting both of them. I think if I don't put the event here,
Oh.
I think it might yell at me.
Oh, okay.
For,
And I already see it yelling.
Yeah, no restricted globals. Like it doesn't want you to use event. Like back in just straight JavaScript, it'd be okay with that,
Oh,
I think. But here it yells at you because it wants this.
gotta do it explicit.
You've got to be explicit.
So a sweeping question, if you just wanted to pass the object, you would have the anonymous function and then your method invoking it with the object you want passed.
Yep. Just like we did here. So here, I passed event here for that, because for the sake of this, sure, let's have access to it. I don't need to, because the article contains everything I need for this.
Sure.
But really, I want the article. So, but yeah. So here we go. Now that we're in here, now that we're actually properly getting our article back the way that we want it to, well, how do we want to, well, we want our read articles to be populated with this article, and we want our unread articles to have it removed from it. So new read articles. This is easy. I'm just going to go this.state.read articles and then pass in the article. So that's what I'm going to set when I do what I call this.setState. I will set this as my new, as what will replace this right here. But now I need to go through and I need to new unread articles. And that's going to equal this.state.unread articles filter. So I want a brand new array where everything is the same except for the one ID I don't want that to pass my filter. So let's, for the sake of this, I'm just going to call this art. That's a horrible naming convention, don't do it, but because really for each of these I want to dive down and return where my art.data.id is not equal to my article.data.id. And so what that's doing is it's comparing the ID from every article that exists in my unread article arrays to the article that's being passed in here. And if those don't match, gets returned into the new array, passes our filter. If it does match, which will happen only under one case, that gets omitted and it doesn't get put into our new array. Cool? And then this dot set state. This is a piece I like. It's not always the most intuitive that this
No.
is the way that you would do that, but it is a way of doing it. Now I can set my unread articles to my new unread articles. And I can set my read articles. Set articles. This is bad. Read article and read articles. I don't like that. Sorry. New read. It's only when I'm in front of people where
English language.
yeah,
Yeah.
I really find out things that I do that I hate whenever I'm in front of people. All right. Oh, why are you yelling at me? Oh, because I don't have
I get that a lot.
articles. I think it's here. Yeah. I'm just gonna. What am I looking for? P equals I. Not that we would do it this way. I would probably do it a different way, but this at least gets it to stop yelling at us. Maybe, maybe not. Whatever. I'm not going to worry about it right now. Okay, so we've got this here. I'm going to read about a long computation freezing window. And look, it removed it from the one and it added it to my read articles count. Junior dev in 2 months.
You
Awesome.
can't see on the screen editing.
Oh.
There we go.
Oh, I was going to say it was showing on mine. Like,
When you were like, look,
Thought he
it
was
worked. I was like,
being
look, it
sarcastic.
works.
And I was like, what are you talking about?
Just trust me, okay? It worked.
You're like, wow, it's so cool. I'm
He
like,
wants to go home. It worked. We're going.
It worked. No, I was just, I'm always impressed when something works the first time I try it because it feels like, yeah, it's like something, I screwed something up.
Can you click on another one? Yeah.
Wow, and the articles that are here, which makes sense because Reddit, they even changed.
Oh, there we go. It took a second.
Yeah, it's delayed on our end.
It's delayed on our end. There we go. Because you're like, wow, it's so fast. Whoa.
What's the top article right now?
Well, they always have like these pinned articles, but the top real article is data fetching best practices. Holy cow, how have I lost 10%? But yeah,
Working hard.
Can you review
Oh, it's
back
really
that
hot.
filter
Yeah.
method and like, can we walk through that? Because I think like when you did that, I was like, oh my god, this is so cool that we're doing it in a way that I wouldn't think about.
well, it's really what I'm doing is I'm making a copy of our original state property, which is our unread articles.
Yep.
Making a copy of it, but with one thing omitted that I want omitted. So I know with my filter, the way it works is it creates a brand new array. It iterates over an array and returns that array or all the properties of that array that match a certain condition. So I want to match the condition basically where everything doesn't match the ID that I clicked on.
Yep.
And then
that's
it creates
the
a
on
brand new array, and that's what I'm setting to my red articles. Or
And
my
you can also
unread.
do that within step state, right? You might want to use previous state in that case.
Yeah, I like keeping my set state call very clean. Personally, I would rather do the logic above it like this. But I don't think there's anything that says you couldn't do it that way. Because really, it'll just evaluate, like, well, let's find out. New unread articles. And, yeah. So like that.
And I did something similar.
Yeah, it totally works.
I guess I like your point of like keeping the set state super clean, doing a lot
Well,
of
the
it.
only reason I asked that is because one of the readings, the labs is talking about how you could get, since set state's asynchronous, you could end up in a situation where your previous state's not what you expected, or like, your state's not what you expected to be.
Yeah, I imagine you could probably get something like that. Just because that state is asynchronous for some reason. Yeah, that can always. Anytime you're dealing with asynchronous behavior, you can kind of run into unexpected things where something is updated and something hasn't, or vice versa. That's part of the reason why I don't know, I like doing all the work ahead of time before I even get to anything that's asynchronous. So, but I still, there's a lot of times, like if I had a red count, like, say when we did this, red count, I'm going to set that to 0. And I want this to increment every time, like, I've read this.state.read count articles. And so I want this to increment every single time that I read something. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just do my read count is now this.state.read count plus 1. So in this case, I'm doing something the opposite of what I had said before, where I'm actually doing the logic.
Sure.
It's very, very short and simple logic, but I'm doing that in here because I think this still reads okay. But once you start getting into like where I'm mapping over things and having a second line to return that, although I didn't even need a second line here, I could have just done, if we really wanted to clean this up, that. Now that's all one line. But still, I don't necessarily want this whole line in my set state.
Sure.
Yay, I'm learning.
You've read so much.
Okay, so just to review, we grabbed something via fetch, and then we posted on our page, updated our state using that API data. We then took things and rendered them on our page. We then had a click event that moved something on our page.
Mm-hmm.
And then we wrote some logic that did that and built some components.
Yep.
Okay,
Cool.
That's good.
Yeah, I'll push this code up so you can look at it. Again, I always like to be pretty transparent as far as what code challenges are kind of looking for. And this is kind of like an idea of one thing that you might see. You probably need to fetch some data. Probably need to render that data. Make sure that happens seamlessly. You'll probably need to click on something or submit a form or something like that, but basically have some kind of event that happens. And based on that event, we'll at least show something in a different area or show something. I have to remove stuff from the screen. Is there anything I'm missing? Might need to write some React hooks. Just kidding.
Good
Whatever.
thing